Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Stewart Heath, founder and CEO of Harvard Grace Capital. And we have a very special guest today, Teasha Cable, who hails from Birmingham, Alabama. We're so grateful that she's taken the time out of her very busy entrepreneurial schedule to be here with us and share her story. Teasha, thanks for being here.
Thank you. No problem. Looking forward to it.
Well, let's jump right in. When you think back, and I would say I'm always interviewing people who've, let's just say, had some life experience. I'm not interviewing youngsters or anything like that. But when you think back on your career, is there an event or some situation that presented itself that was a game changer for you?
Yeah. I often tell people the story about how I learned how wrong I was to learn how to get right. And so I had a boss. So when I started my career, I started in sales operations, and part of my job was preparing numbers, right? I'd have to prepare reports, and I was fairly young at the time, and I would prepare my reports, and I'd think that I had it all right. And I had a CEO who was reviewing these reports who would say, he came to me and one day he said, well, Teasha, I love these reports. There's always like something that just isn't right. And I said, oh man. And so from that point on, I was very determined to ensure that I got, if anything, the numbers were always going to be right. And that anything that I was presenting to people was going to be, I was going to take my most careful opportunity, my most careful chance to make sure that it was right, as right can be, right? And so it was a game changer because that's where the idea of striving for excellence for me really came from. So where someone might read something twice, I might read it until it was right, that kind of thing. So it was big because it was the other thing that made me realize that a lot of times we miss the key details. And if we don't focus on those details, we can also miss opportunities, right? We can miss chances to improve things. And so my goal is always to focus on those details so that we can get things as right as they can be.
As a CPA, I'm a natural born numbers geek as well, and numbers speak to me. I can tell they speak to you too, and you just never, we speak a language that not everybody else speaks. Would you say that awoken your inner perfectionist?
I think it did, but what it taught me was it was really more about preparation. So one key distinction is not to be perfect, but to ensure that it's accurate and that there's this difference between the two, because sometimes when you present accurate things, it's not a perfectionism that you're looking for, right? Because the story that might be told might not be a perfect story, but it's the truth. And that's always the key for me. So it's really more about accuracy, no matter what the outcome is, but ensuring that it's accurate. I often think of perfectionism as trying to get too close to the outcome. And sometimes when we do that, you can also misstep, right? You can adjust the narrative because you're seeking perfection. Well, no, I'm looking for accuracy. So right. Yeah.
Okay.
Waking it up though. It put another fire inside of me for sure.
Cool. All right. Along the journey, everybody hits a bump in the road. Sometimes it's our fault, sometimes it's nobody's fault. Can you talk about a time where you hit a bump and how you dealt with getting through it or around it?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, right, I had a corporate career before becoming an entrepreneur. And, in a corporate career, you don't have to worry about things like running out of money. as an entrepreneur, this becomes like your primary focus. How do I ensure that we don't run out of money? And
Right.
so I remember very early in my entrepreneurial journey, especially after transitioning from a corporate career where you don't necessarily know, even in business operations, you don't always know exactly when that company is going to run out of money.
Right.
So with little insight, in jumping in, I had a moment early on this journey where I was very cash strapped. Like we were running out of money, and it was very stressful. But it was something that I could have avoided by paying attention to a new set of details that an entrepreneur you have to manage, which is continually managing burn and cash flow, looking at the numbers in a way that as the head of business operations, I didn't have to look at the numbers. I was just looking at cost and against revenue then. Now I'm looking at every penny to the dollar and how it relates to the model that I set out, because am I actually achieving the goals that I set out to achieve that prove the thing that's going to get me the next influx of cash if I'm seeking investment? There's just this line of understanding the numbers that is totally different as an entrepreneur. And I had a bump in the road in my very early part of this journey where I wasn't as aware. I'm very well aware now.
So how did you make it through?
Well, the first thing was praise the Lord, we were able to successfully raise money. So I actually bootstrapped the company up to a certain point, and it was in that activity that I hadn't really considered when was the right time to go out and raise additional capital. And so what I did was I was able to successfully raise capital in order to keep the show on the road. But from that point on, I've also had a diligence around the money and the cash flow that it fuels me to pay attention. Yeah. So that's how I got over, and just new discipline is what I'll say. New discipline to focus on the money.
Congratulations to you on several fronts. You started a business, and it's still successful, which most of them are not. And you also done something that even fewer entrepreneurs, which is raise outside equity for your company for growth capital, and which means you impressed another set of likely entrepreneurs who invested in you. So congrats on that. That's no easy feat. I like to say you're not really an entrepreneur though unless you know the cash flow dance. So
That's right.
Somebody who starts something and they started it with $40 million of venture capital, and you don't know the cash flow dance.
You don't know the cash flow. No, that's not how it happens over here.
I did it for over 30 years, so I feel you. So, Teasha, I hate learning new things, and when I say that, I am actually a lifelong learner. I'm a CPA. I have to get continuing education every year, which I actually enjoy because I like obtaining new skills and new knowledge. But the thing that drives me crazy is like when Microsoft decides to change how Excel is going to work or whatever. It's like, I'm good. I'll keep the old one. And you're rarely left with that choice. How do you approach learning new things, and how do you incorporate that into your into working your career?
Yeah. So first, I built a business around learning new things. So our technology is all about continually finding unique value, and how companies do that in a very structured approach, right, related to strategy and work. I personally believe that, and my mom actually said this in me. She said, when you stop learning, you ought to be dead and buried, right? So there's a constant need.
Just like a mom.
Just like when you stop learning, you ought to be gone. And so that's how she said it. I believe that growth at every step of the way can be found in all of the things that we learn. So I can learn something new with every problem that I solve. So my passion is problem solving. So therefore, every time I go out to figure out how to solve a new problem or figure out what the problem, I am learning things along the way that is fueling me. When there is a scenario and I bump up against something that I'm unfamiliar with, then my approach is to not just learn something theoretically, but to actually find some practical implementation that I can do of this new thing that I learned, so that I know that the thing works that I learned. So I might be a little bit of well, I don't know. Maybe there are lots of people who are like that, but this idea that I'm not just going to go learn it in the book and go figure. I need to actually put my hands on it. I need to touch it. I need to feel it. I need to see what the outcomes are going to be when I'm doing it, and then from there, I can form my own opinion too about how I feel about that thing that I just learned. So that's kind of my process. But it's a continual, constant journey. I think I might at least 2 times a day run up against something like, I hadn't heard that before, especially talking to customers through our customer discovery activities and stuff. You often find new problems, new things that people are experiencing. As the world changes, things change. So yeah, that's my approach.
Yeah, I like it. Everybody's got their own version of being a lifelong learner. Some people have stacks of books on their bedside table, and others of us, you sound like you like to experience the new thing, and I'm kind of an experiential learner myself. So
yeah, so I'll read first, right? So let's say I read a book. Okay, the book is great. Sometimes you read books and you're like, man, this book has a lot of opinions in it. So let me go out and let's see if this works, right? So sometimes you'll find, like, a book might have, I read a book recently that had a set of charts and graphs in it to explain a process. So I need to take this now out of this book and see if in my real life situation, these charts and graphs actually work, or was this just some theoretical thing that someone came up with and was like, oh, if I piece these together, this will work. So that's kind of, it's a combination.
gotcha. Yep. Yeah. And I'm going to play your answer there to that question for one of my sons. He's somewhere in between high school and college, and let's just say, and he likes cars and stuff like that, and he's trying to figure out his place in the world. I said, well, why don't you? I said, why don't you learn how to work on cars and send you to the auto diesel college, stuff like that, because he loves this stuff. And his response was, I don't want to solve other people's problems. And I said, son, that's what all employment is. Your boss wants to hire you to solve their customers' problems. I mean, that's what everything is. And I loved your answer to that. And he won't listen to me. Maybe he'll listen to you. So
we'll see. I'll bring it to
him. So let's pivot a little bit to wealth and investing. So in the realm of this, without any numbers, and with the wealth that you have generated being an entrepreneur and through your corporate, how do you invest it? What things are your passions? Just tell us how you position your investable capital.
Yeah. So, and I don't know where this stands in your stuff. So my husband and I are a team, and my husband is primarily responsible for this part of our life. But here's what we do. Okay. So we are invested in real estate. So we do own property. We moved to Birmingham from California, and we have property in California, and we have property in Birmingham. We also my husband does invest in the stock market. So that's another element. And then the third one is going to sound a little bit less like an investment in the traditional sense. But I invest a significant amount of my time helping people to think about whether it's their business and how it's going to grow, that outside of just selling a product to people. I probably invest a lot of my time and my experience from my corporate career just helping and talking to folks about what I've seen on the other side. Because there's starting something, but then there's, well, what does it look like on the other side? And I have seen and worked in at high levels in successful organizations. And so showing people that and giving them that information is something that I enjoy doing. And I give that of myself.
Yeah.
What I get back, the return on that investment is more often that people trust what I say. They trust that I'm really going to be able to help and support them. And I believe that that's as valuable as any monetary figure when it comes to being an entrepreneur.
I completely agree with that. That's one of the more interesting answers that we've had, and that's certainly investing in a different way. I love that. Giving back is a huge part of, some of it's payback and some of it is paying it forward, kind of a thing. So I love that very much. So no crypto for you guys, no gold buried in the backyard or anything like that. So,
no crypto. Yep, no gold in the backyard. Very traditional, straightforward, risk light type stuff going on here.
I love it. I don't understand crypto, and so I'm never likely to do it. So I know some people who've made a lot of money in it.
Yeah, our big gamble is entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, technology company.
That's right.
That's the big gamble.
We've already got the amusement park ride at home. So
exactly.
All right, last question here. If anybody wants to follow you, follow in your footsteps, emulate you, or perhaps you're mentoring somebody, what's the single best piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah. The first one is I would be very, very sure about your purpose. That purpose gives you identity. And when you're in the realm of entrepreneurship, your identity is everything. You have to know who you are. You're not going to these spaces to become something, you're to build something, but you need to be sure because there's a lot of to and fro in these spaces. You can get tossed around. And so being careful to have a very clear purpose about why you're starting a business. And it can't just be to build money, right? It can't just be to get rich. Because if that's it, the minute that hard times hit, you're going to be a very sad person. So purpose is everything in entrepreneurship.
Completely agreed. I think there's a Harvard professor who wrote a book one time. I think his name was Michael Porter. And I read this book, it's about that thick, and there's one line in it that I remember. It's like, it's easy to stay focused when you're making money. But and if you're having to do the cash flow dance, you might actually be making money accounting wise, because nothing sucks out cash like a growing enterprise. But and it's when you're doing that it's easy to get distracted by something else over here or over there that might bring in cash faster. And next thing you know, you're just all over the place. So well said, spot on. Love that. Absolutely love that. Teasha, thank you so much for spending some time this afternoon with us. If anybody wants to be able to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
So they can visit our website at www.cmodel.io. Or if really not, they can email me at Teasha, TEASHA, @cmodel.io.
We will make sure we get all of that into the show notes for anybody who's watching. Everybody, thank you for watching this episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. Thank you once again, Teasha, for joining us. And I hope everybody will tune back in to watch the next episode and share this with your friends. Thank us again, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.